Culture 2. Robinson Crusoe.
The Real Robinson Crusoe. Written by Daniel Defoe and published in 1719, Robinson Crusoe is one of the oldest and most famous adventure stories in English literature. In the story, Crusoe is marooned on a desert island and spends 27 years there before he is rescued. Defoe probably got the idea for his novel from the true story of the Scottish sailor Alexander Selkirk. In the early 18th century, England was at war with Spain, and Selkirk joined the crew of an English ship, the Cinque Ports, which attacked Spanish colonies and ships in the South Pacific. In 1704, Selkirk's ship stopped at a remote island for fresh water and supplies. Selkirk was worried that the ship was in poor condition and, instead of returning to it, decided to stay on the island alone. He became very lonely and quickly regretted his decision, but he was right about the Cinque Ports. It sank. Selkirk survived by building a shelter and killing animals for food. 2 ships visited the island the following year, but unfortunately they were Spanish, so Selkirk hid from sight. An English ship finally arrived at the island in February 1709, and Selkirk was able to return home.
Culture 2. Exercises 4 and 5.
I took my prisoner to my secret cave on the other side of the island and gave him food and drink. After that, he went to sleep. He was a fine young man, about 25 years old, tall and well-built, with a kind face and nice smile. I decided to give him the name of Man Friday, because I first saw him on a Friday. I began to teach him to speak English, and soon he could say his name, master, and yes and no. How good it was to hear a man's voice again. Later that day, we went back to my first house. We went carefully along the beach, but there were no boats and no cannibals. Friday was a quick learner, and his English got better day by day. He helped me with the goats and with the work in the cornfields, and soon we were good friends. I enjoyed teaching him, and, most of all, having a friend to talk to. This was the happiest of all my years on the island. Friday and I lived together happily for 3 years. I told him the story of my adventures and about life in England, and he told me about his country and his people. One day, we were at the top of the highest hill on the island, and we were looking out to sea. It was a very clear day, and we could see a long way. Suddenly, Friday began to jump up and down very excitedly. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Look, Master, look!" Friday cried. "I can see my country. Look, over there!" I began to think about escape. Perhaps Friday wanted to go home too. Perhaps together we could get to his country. But what then? Would Friday still be my friend?